What if I told you that you performed a highly effective, literally reality-altering magic ritual this morning, and you did it entirely by accident?
Yeah, just by stressing out about your commute, right? Or, dreading a meeting at work.
Exactly. I mean, welcome to today's deep dive, everyone, because that idea alone completely shatters what we think we're doing with our minds on a daily basis.
It really does. It changes the whole perspective.
Right. Usually when you picture someone, practicing magic, there's this inescapable Hollywood image that immediately pops up.
Oh, totally. The bubbling cauldrons.
Right, the cauldrons, the dusty scrolls, like someone standing in a dark room wearing these heavy velvet robes, chanting in some spooky dead language.
It feels so far removed from our actual rational everyday lives.
It does.
Yeah.
But what if all of that, like the robes, the incense, the secret societies, what if that is completely unnecessary? What if true magic doesn't happen in a castle, but entirely inside your own head, like a strict mechanical science of the mind?
Well, we have a really fascinating roadmap for this today. We are diving into the concepts laid out in a book called The Magickian, a study in effective magic by Philip Cooper.
Which, by the way, if you actually go looking for a physical copy of this book today, you are in for a shock.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard to find.
It is. It's become so rare and so highly sought after by serious practitioners that you will regularly see worn-out paperback copies selling online for thousands of dollars.
Thousands. Yeah, it's essentially become the cult classic manual for the human operating system.
Exactly. So, whether you are a skeptic tuning in to analyze a psychological framework or you're a curious seeker, we're going to unpack why this text commands that kind of reverence. Our mission today is to explore Cooper's extremely pragmatic take on this deeply misunderstood topic.
Right. We're looking at how thoughts, imagination, and willpower are the actual engines here, and why everything else is just window dressing.
So to even begin understanding this framework, Cooper insists on a complete mental clearing, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He says we have to unlearn all that pop culture baggage. I mean, the theatrical aesthetic we associate with the occult, that originally stemmed from historical necessity. People were hiding their practices to avoid persecution.
Oh, sure. So they wouldn't get, burned at the stake.
Exactly. But over the centuries, the disguise became the focus. People basically started worshiping the props.
Wow. Okay, so how does Cooper redefine true magic once you throw out the cauldrons and the chanting?
He defines it in brilliantly practical terms. He says true magic is simply the art of using controlled thought to produce a physical result.
Controlled thought.
Yeah, it belongs entirely to the individual. And Cooper is incredibly strict about separating what he calls true belief from superstition.
Okay, what's the difference there in his eyes?
Well, he argues that superstition is blind. It's accepting things without reason, doing things just because it's, quote, tradition, or because some self-proclaimed guru told you to. Superstition actually ruins the process because it introduces doubt and confusion. True belief, on the other hand, is sane. It's logical. It stands up to testing. He says you need to constantly ask why until you understand the underlying mechanism.
That makes me think of the difference between an average computer user and a programmer.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right,
Sure.
because traditional, superstitious, magic chanting words you don't understand, lighting a specific color of candle, it's like clicking aimlessly on a confusing user interface. You're just crossing your fingers and hoping the program runs.
Hoping something happens, yeah.
Yeah, you don't know why it works. You just know that sometimes if you click the shiny icon, something happens.
Yeah.
But Cooper isn't teaching us how to click the interface. He's teaching us how to code directly into the mind's operating system.
To build on that, he's basically trying to give you administrative privileges to your own hardware. But to write that code, you have to understand the specific components of the machine.
Okay, let's look at the specs of this mental hardware then.
So Cooper breaks the mind down into 3 interacting areas. You have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the will.
Let's start with the first one. What is the conscious mind doing in this framework?
The conscious mind is your gatekeeper. It interacts with the physical world using your 5 senses. Its primary job is to rationalize, categorize, and establish facts.
Facts in air quotes, I assume.
Huge air quotes. Because the crucial catch here is that the conscious mind doesn't inherently know the absolute truth. It establishes facts based on what it observes or, more dangerously, what it has been taught by external sources.
Meaning if society or your parents or a teacher hammered something into your head when you were 7 years old, say like money is the root of all evil, or you aren't smart enough to succeed, Your conscious mind might still file that away in the absolute undeniable fact folder.
Exactly that. And that misfiled information becomes the blueprint for the second component.
The subconscious.
Right, the subconscious mind. Cooper calls the subconscious the powerhouse. Its singular purpose is to create reality based exactly on the instructions it receives from the conscious mind's fact folder.
It just takes the orders.
Yes, it does not reason, it does not judge whether an instruction is healthy or destructive. It just takes the data and builds a reality that matches it. It is an unlimited, unreasoning creation engine acting on autopilot.
Which, I mean, that brings up a massive question for me.
Let's hear it.
If our subconscious is this limitless powerhouse that just builds whatever we tell it to, why do we so easily manifest anxiety, stress, and misery? Like, if it's that easy, why aren't we all just accidentally manifesting winning lottery tickets?
It's the big paradox, right? And
Yeah.
Cooper addresses it directly. It goes right back to that fact folder we were talking about. From a very young age, we are conditioned with negative facts.
Restrictions and fears.
Exactly. We're taught to expect the worst, to believe that life is a constant struggle, to anticipate failure. And because the conscious mind accepted these ideas as truth, the subconscious powerhouse was basically handed a highly detailed blueprint for stress.
Wow.
So Cooper argues that worry is, mechanically speaking, a highly effective form of ritual.
Wait, we need to pause and let that sink in. Worrying is a ritual.
By his definition, absolutely.
That is wild.
Think about the mechanics of worrying. You are intensely focusing your thoughts and emotions on a specific, vivid, negative outcome. You truly believe it might happen. Your conscious mind feeds that fear to the subconscious.
And the subconscious just says, okay, understood.
Right. It says creating a reality filled with obstacles, stress, and missed opportunities. You are performing an accidental, reality-altering negative ritual every single time you obsess over a worry.
That is a staggering realization.
Yeah.
We're constantly programming our own roadblocks. I mean, just by doom scrolling before bed, you are feeding the engine terrible instructions.
You're running the anxiety code.
So the third component, the will, that must be the emergency brake, right? How does that factor in?
The will is the driving force you need to break the cycle. Because your conscious mind has been guarding these negative facts for years, it will aggressively fight any new positive instruction.
It'll reject it.
Completely. If you just try to think a happy thought, the conscious mind says, nope, that's not a fact, and throws it out. The will is the focused determination needed to bypass that critical gatekeeper and plant new, intentional instructions directly into the subconscious powerhouse.
But if the subconscious is this unreasoning, literal engine, how do we actually talk to it? Like, I'm picturing the subconscious as a foreign diplomat.
Okay, I like that.
You can't just yell at it in everyday conversational English and expect it to sign a treaty. You need a translator. You need to speak its native language.
That is precisely the barrier. Everyday speech bounces right off. If you stand in front of a mirror and just say, I am wealthy.
Your conscious mind immediately intervenes, checks your bank balance, and rejects it.
Exactly. The subconscious never even receives the message. So the universal translator, according to Cooper, is imagination combined with symbols. The subconscious doesn't understand language, but it responds to imagery, it responds to deep emotion, and it responds to sensory stimuli.
Ah. So this is where the traditional magical tools finally make sense.
Yes, but entirely from a psychological angle.
Right, the colors, the geometric shapes, they aren't there to, appease some external spirit in the room. They are sensory hacks designed to slip past the conscious mind and communicate directly with your own subconscious.
You are finally speaking its language. Magic uses a specialized visual vocabulary called symbology. Geometric patterns of power, like the encircled cross or the pentagram, those are archetypal symbols that the subconscious inherently understands.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
But this is also where beginners almost always fail, because Cooper stresses a vital rule. Tension is the enemy of ritual.
Meaning, if you are trying too hard, you ruin the code.
Think of it like trying to thread a tiny needle while clenching your fists and gritting your teeth. The harder you force it, the worse your aim becomes.
That's a great visual.
Right. Beginners often think they need to hold perfect, high-definition, photorealistic pictures in their mind's eye. They sweat and strain trying to visualize a symbol flawlessly.
Which just makes you more stressed.
Exactly. Cooper points out that this strained, perfectionist thinking keeps the conscious mind wide awake and anxious, which blocks the subconscious entirely. You don't need a 4K resolution image in your head.
So what do you need?
You just need to know the image is there. True imagination, the kind that bridges the gap, only happens in a state of relaxed contemplation. The subconscious only accepts the thread when the mental muscles are completely relaxed.
Okay, so we know we need relaxed imagination and we need symbols to act as our translator. But practically speaking, how on earth do you achieve that? Like when you have a day job, a buzzing phone, a noisy house, where does this communication actually happen without the whole system crashing?
Well, this brings us to a really core concept in the text, the inner temple or the psychic laboratory.
Okay.
Now, physical temples with actual swords, chalices, and perfectly colored altars, they can be useful. They give your five senses something physical to lock onto, which distracts the conscious mind. But Cooper is incredibly clear that physical tools are ultimately psychological crutches.
The real workspace is inside.
Built entirely inside your mind, yes.
And he is famously unpretentious about physical space, right? I mean, for a book that commands thousands of dollars, the advice on where to practice is shockingly down to earth.
It is incredibly grounded. He basically says if you don't have a dedicated esoteric room, just use a spare bedroom. If you don't have that, use a closet.
A closet.
Yeah, he shares a personal anecdote where his own temple for a period of time was a broom cupboard. It measured exactly 60 by 33 inches.
Wow.
And he performed full, highly effective rituals in there. It proves his underlying point, right? The power isn't in the room, the architecture, or the aesthetics. The power is in the profound relaxation you achieve within that space.
Let's really dig into that relaxation, actually, because he outlines a very specific exercise for this, and it sounded totally counterintuitive to me when I first read it.
You mean the floor exercise?
Yes.
It's fundamental to his method. He argues the equation. Peace equals power. To truly reach the subconscious, you must systematically remove the fear, doubt, and physical tension of everyday life. So to achieve this, he instructs the practitioner to lie down, but not on a comfortable bed where you will likely just fall asleep.
Right.
You have to lie down on a mildly uncomfortable hard floor.
Which sound like the exact opposite of relaxing. I mean, if I'm on a hard floor, my back hurts, my neck is stiff.
It does sound contrary. But there is a brilliant mechanical reason for it. Because the floor is hard, your body is forced to actively release tension to get comfortable.
Oh, I see.
You can't rely on a soft mattress to support your weight. You have to consciously scan your body and relax every single muscle group, from your toes all the way up to your jaw. You have to let yourself sink heavily into the floor.
It's an active process of letting go.
Yes. And as your body releases that physical tension, your brain waves literally shift. It induces a deep, tranquil trance state. Once you hit that state of total mental and physical calm, the conscious mind essentially goes dormant, and the doorway to the inner temple is wide open.
Okay, so picture this. We are deeply relaxed on the floor of our broom closet. Our brainwaves have slowed down. We are visualizing our symbols without straining, and we've bypassed the conscious gatekeeper. We're officially in the operating system.
We're in.
What is the goal here? Is it just an elaborate meditation to feel a sense of inner peace?
If we look at the broader picture Cooper is painting, the answer is a definitive no.
Okay.
This is where we hit one of the most controversial and frankly defining aspects of his entire framework. He forcefully reiterates that the ultimate metric for a successful ritual is a tangible, physical result.
Physical result.
It is not about daydreaming or feeling spiritually enlightened or having interesting visions to write down in a journal. He literally states in the book, if you perform a ritual to invoke a Mercedes-Benz 260E, a Mercedes-Benz 260E should appear.
Right.
Really?
Not a bicycle, not a nice feeling about cars, the actual car itself.
Okay, hold on. I have to push back here.
I figured you might.
Because I can completely buy into the idea that relaxing on a floor makes me less stressed. And I can buy that visualizing symbols rewires my confidence. But you're telling me Cooper says if I visualize a Mercedes, it just physically appears in my driveway. We are walking a really fine line here between cognitive behavioral therapy and sheer mysticism. How does he justify that logically? Does it just drop from the sky?
It is the ultimate friction point of the book, for sure. But Cooper doesn't claim it drops from the sky or that it breaks the laws of physics. Instead, he explains the mechanism of manifestation through probability and synchronicity.
Okay, unpack that for me.
When you successfully program the subconscious powerhouse with the absolute fact that you possess that Mercedes, the subconscious immediately gets to work altering your reality to make it true. It changes your behavior, your micro-decisions, and your confidence.
So you start acting differently. Yes. You suddenly notice financial opportunities you would have previously ignored entirely. You happen to strike up a conversation with someone selling that exact car at a price you can suddenly afford. Cooper argues that the subconscious orchestrates a highly complex chain of events, aligning what he calls your reality tunnel, so that you naturally arrive at the physical result.
So it's less about bending spoons with your mind and more about reprogramming your brain to flawlessly navigate the physical world toward a very specific target.
Precisely. It shifts the probabilities in your favor.
Interesting.
And that raises another massive hurdle for people, because how do you reconcile this hyper-practical, materialistic, results-driven approach with the spiritual dogma that usually surrounds these topics?
Right. There's this pervasive idea that true enlightenment requires, like, a vow of poverty, or that wanting things is bad.
Cooper tackles that head-on. He explicitly advises practitioners to throw away that religious dogma.
Yeah.
He argues that the universe, or whatever you choose to call the creative force, is abundant and perfect. So it makes zero logical sense that a perfect creator would place humans in a physical world bursting with potential, only to demand they suffer and deprive themselves just to prove their worth.
He's saying we're supposed to enjoy it.
Exactly. He states that material fulfillment, personal happiness, and success are natural rights. Desire is not a sin. Desire is the magnetic force that sets the subconscious engine into motion.
But, this naturally leads to a pretty dark question.
I know where you're going with this.
If this power is simply an abundant, freely given psychological mechanism that guarantees physical results based on desire,
Yeah.
what stops someone from using it to do harm? This drops us right into the classic debate of black versus white magic.
It does. And Cooper's take on this is entirely rooted in natural mechanics rather than morality tales.
It makes me think of electricity, honestly.
How?
Well, electricity doesn't have a moral compass. The exact same current can power a life-saving incubator in a neonatal unit, or it can power an electric chair. The energy itself doesn't care. It has no agenda. It is entirely dependent on the intention of the operator who flips the switch.
That is spot on. To take that a step further, think about how you wire a house. If you wire it correctly, it lights up the rooms. If you wire it carelessly, it burns the house down.
Right.
The electricity is just doing its job. That is exactly Cooper's stance on magical energy. The text explicitly states that energy is neither positive nor negative. The whole concept of black magic as an external evil force and white magic as an external holy force is a fundamental misunderstanding of the mechanics.
So it's all the same energy.
All of it. You have absolute free will to use this internal power constructively or destructively, and both will get results.
But if there is no angry deity waiting to strike you down for using it destructively, what are the actual consequences? Like if someone decides to use this to ruin their boss's life, what stops them?
The consequence is the uncompromising natural law of cause and effect. It is karma, but stripped of its mystical, punitive baggage.
Okay, so psychological karma.
Basically. Remember the core mechanism we discussed. Your subconscious mind creates reality based on the patterns you feed it. If your intention is filled with hatred, destruction, and a desire to cause harm, you are steeping your own subconscious in the imagery of destruction.
Ah, so you are programming your own operating system with a malicious virus.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between destroy them and destroy me. It just registers that destruction is the current operational instruction.
Wow.
As we sow, so shall we reap. By initiating a malicious action, you are the very first person affected by that negative energy. You inevitably create a reality of conflict, paranoia, and misery for yourself.
Okay, it's not a divine punishment.
No, it is just psychological cause and effect. The universe doesn't punish you, your own mind does, because you built an environment of hostility within your own inner temple.
So zooming out here, let's look at the core takeaways we've uncovered from this incredibly rare, highly valued text. First and foremost, we have to drop the theatrical baggage.
Burn the velvet robes.
Right. Magic isn't about spooky aesthetics or appealing to external entities. It is a deeply personal, rational, psychological science.
It requires recognizing that your mind is divided. You have the conscious gatekeeper filled with societal noise and facts, and you have the subconscious creation engine waiting for clear instructions.
And by utilizing profound relaxation like the floor exercise and controlled imagination and focused willpower, you can bypass those conscious doubts.
And the proof that you've successfully coded those new instructions isn't just feeling a sense of peace. It's seeing tangible, physical results in your daily life. The Mercedes in the driveway.
It's a framework that is incredibly empowering, but also, honestly, incredibly demanding because it places 100% of the responsibility for your reality squarely on your own shoulders.
Which is a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah.
But it is also the ultimate form of freedom. And knowing this, knowing that your subconscious mind is constantly faithfully absorbing the facts you feed it, taking your everyday worries, your doom scrolling, and turning them into your physical reality, it leaves you with a critical question to consider.
What's that?
What accidental negative rituals are you performing right now just by passively consuming the stress of the modern world? And more importantly, knowing you have the administrative privileges to your own mind. What will you choose to visualize instead when you wake up tomorrow?